talk to people and then really check in with yourself. Like, that's part of the feeling. It's you feel like things don't feel right. They're kind of surreal. What's the truth? What's not the truth?
We've heard about it, but what the heck really is gaslighting? Welcome back to Talking with Teri TV, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. We're going to learn a lot about that with our guest, Dr. Patti Ashley. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Teri.
Yes. Okay, well, I think this is becoming more and more in the forefront. You know, before you might have heard it in passing, but now I feel like it's like, it's like the new hip thing to talk about, I think.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is, like, let's unpack it, because you're a therapist. Let's hear about your background. Why can you speak about this? Like, tell us about your background as a therapist.
Well, you know, actually, that's a good question, because it was years ago I had a client come to me and she told me that she felt like she was being gaslighted by her husband. And I was like, what is that? That was like many, many years ago. And she explained it to me and I was like, oh, that makes sense. And so now I notice it a lot, you know, when people come. Basically, it's a form of emotional manipulation. And it can be, there's different degrees of it, you know. And in her case, I'd say it was more of her husband trying to deflect from what she needed, which is the way I see it happens a lot in my practice, particularly with men and women.
Yeah.
But then there's the more intense gaslighting, which is really you want to make somebody actually feel crazy.
Yeah.
So there's a consciousness and an unconscious way that sometimes people gaslight. Oftentimes it's unconscious because we're just trying to feel like we have power.
Yeah. So give us like some examples of this.
Yeah. Well, in my practice, for instance, this happens a lot. The subtler gaslighting where particularly women will come and say, you know, I was talking to my husband about, you know, how he's driving and he's just driving too fast. And he says to me, well, it's your problem. What's your problem? You know, I'm not driving too fast. You're crazy. So it's like things that we're told by the other person that make us wonder if, you know, well, maybe he's not driving too fast. Or maybe, you know, in a more severe case, it's somebody's going to, well, actually, the movie Gaslight, which is where the term came from, you know, is an extreme form of gaslighting where it was filmed in the 1940s about this man who was trying to steal some jewels from this woman that he had actually murdered, and he married her niece because she was taking care of this girl. Anyway, so he ends up marrying the niece of the woman that he murdered and moving back into the house and manipulating her by telling her this story. I'm so in love with you, love bombing. So you'll see it a lot in narcissistic relationships. It starts with a love bombing, and the narcissists are great at telling you what you want to hear and reeling you in and making it look good. And then he starts to settle things like, where's that brooch I gave you? Because he's moved it now, he's hid it, and she can't find it. And he's like, you're always forgetting things. You're always forgetting things. And so she starts to wonder, am I forgetting things? I don't think I'm forgetting things. So that's a more extreme form of gaslighting. But if you look at it, you know, in a day-to-day practice, the subtleties of being talked out of our feelings happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to, you know, deal with the reality of what somebody may be bringing them. Oh, you've had a hard day? Well, my day's been a lot worse than yours. You should have dealt with what I had to deal with today. You know, so there's this whole spectrum of
When I think on the other side, as the person that's being gaslit, right, you start to question, wait, did I have it? Are they right? And then pretty soon we start to see the evidence, right? And we start to see the evidence of like, yeah, you're right. And we do start to feel like we are losing our minds. We have gone crazy because we're like, wait, the brooch was there. I don't remember taking it. And because it actually didn't happen, you know, we start to question ourselves and our ability for memory and all sorts of things. On a really deep, psychological kind of level.
Yeah, and I'll be really transparent here. My ex-husband is a narcissist, and I used to try and tell him something. Well, this happened, and he'd go, no, it didn't. And he would have a completely different story. And you know, that's what happens occasionally, right? You know, you don't remember the story the same way. But it happened over and over and over and over again. And I kept thinking, wow, what was the real story here?
Yeah.
Because it just makes you wonder, or you're being told certain things like, what's your problem? You're not good enough. What, you'll never amount to anything, or you can't get it right. And you start to believe that about yourself. So your self-esteem gets really low and you get confused.
I love it.
So like my client who was talking about her husband, and he didn't want to hear that he was driving too fast. And she was like, well, maybe it's me. Like, I knew what I was getting into when I married him. Maybe I shouldn't, speak up about him driving too fast. That's just one example. There were many others. But, so we don't want to speak up. We lose our authentic self and we start to doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
And the narcissist or whoever is gaslighting does it because that helps them feel like they've got their power in the situation.
We're going to take a quick little break and we'll be right back to learn a powerful tool so that we can step back into our power and no longer be victims of gaslighting.
I'm Jeffrey Bowling, owner and jewelry designer at Jeffrey B. Jewelers, Denver's #1 jewelry design studio. And the reason why we're #1 is because of our 3D custom jewelry design. We can show you what your piece is going to look like way before the end product. And this is going to give you the comfort of knowing you get exactly what you want.
He took me over to the computer and we started drawing up exactly what I wanted. And I told my husband, I'm like, Jeffrey B is the person we're going to use.
And the other reason is that all of our gold and our diamonds are ethically sourced. So when you're ready to make that proposal, when you're ready for that legacy piece, go to jeffreyb.com and make an appointment. Because when it's love, it's Jeffrey B.
And we're back with Dr. Patti Ashley, guest expert today, therapist, and we're talking all things gaslighting and how it's become this kind of, not necessarily new trend, but here's the question here is, I feel like it has never been really talked about, but now as we're kind of unpacking this, so has this always been the case and was just subtle, or we just have the terminology now to talk about it?
Gosh, what a good question.
Yeah.
If you think historically about the role of women and men, women have been gaslighted a lot, talked out of their power and put down and called hysterical.
Yeah.
Women have often been called hysterical
especially back in the day of Freudian, where, again, that was a diagnosis, right?
The word hysterectomy comes from hysterical. So women have been talked out of their feelings for thousands of years. It's just being seen now because the world is so different. And we're going, well, wait a minute, how do we come into our power as women? What does that mean? And, it's not just women that get gaslighted. Anyone, whether you're a man or a woman, can be gaslighted, but typically you've seen it with women a lot.
And you also see it with more certain diagnoses, like, right, obviously narcissism, that's a huge one. And this also, not only just in relationships, but think about relationships from, employees, employers, like different roles in that as well, that can be showing up in those roles as well.
Whistleblowers at work. I was just talking to a friend this week and she actually got fired because she was calling out the company she worked for some safety issues and they fired her. So no, that's not a safety issue. Well, it is. She said they were stacking the boxes up to the wall and, people could have really gotten hurt. Whistleblower. So that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I had a client years ago, one of my first internships, who was being sexually harassed at work. And the company she was filing a complaint with fought it and brought me in to testify to try and, say she was crazy. And it just really floored me that. And it was, a team of people in this deposition, attorneys and all kinds of people. And her case notes from the work I'd done with her were all out there because they were trying to prove that she was crazy, that she wasn't being sexually harassed.
Wow.
So, yeah, it happens a lot.
And especially in the court world, right? Like it happens a lot in the court world.
Oh, absolutely. And even with physicians, sometimes they'll say, you're a
that's a big one.
hypochondriac,
That's a huge one.
Women's
because
health
if there's
right
not
now.
if there's not a physical lump or there's a physical something that they can see with their eyes, it's like, oh no, that's in your head. That's just in your head.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of women talking to me in my practice as well as in the media. Even Oprah's now talking about women's health, how it's menopause and how these things are so minimized. Like, it's just your hormones, whatever.
Yeah.
I remember when I went into menopause, the doctor said, well, you have two choices. You can take Prozac or hormones. I I tried Prozac for a week and said, forget it.
Yeah.
You know? Just, that's it. You know, there's
Yeah.
no like, what's going on with you? What's this experience like? You're just, you know, a woman.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was just in Dallas literally a week ago, less than a week ago, and Stacey London from What Not to Wear was there, and that's her whole movement now. She is just partnered with, I think she said Canyon Road and in Arizona, and she's actually going to create a retreat, you know, hotel style that is all menopause friendly. But she's had such a hard time, you know, overcoming these things. Like, nope, that's just your body, right? Yeah. But how women are getting, you know, gaslighted, you know, all over the place, right? So,
exactly.
So let me ask you this, you know, okay, I'm being gaslighted. You know, how do I start to recognize that, and what can I do about it?
Talking to people is the key, not isolating yourself and staying in your self-doubt, because the whole goal is for the self-doubt. So who's right, who's wrong? So talk to other people, get feedback, therapy, you know, mentor, coach, whatever. Just talk to people about it. You know, and it's a form of abuse. And people don't think of that because they think of abuse as physical harm, but it's emotional abuse. So, you know, if you feel like you're not safe, I would call, you know, a hotline, a mental health hotline, or even a sexual abuse hotline or something. Talk about it. I think that's the key.
And I think that's important, like to really just kind of reality check, right, with somebody that you trust, that has your back, but just say, okay, am I losing my mind? Because here's what's happening. Here's what I know for a fact. Here's what's being presented to me, and just kind of laying it out and having somebody else that's not in your shoes be able to test it out. Does this make sense? And get support, because you're right. Being isolated, and a lot of times, in a lot of cases, I know when I was back in the therapy world, the isolation and having person, you know, be alone with their thoughts, it's easier to access that. It's easier to really
be in the self-doubt.
Be in the self-doubt with it.
Yeah, it's so easy. We start to go, what is real? And that's the whole point. And then the person who is gaslighting, it, you know, they feel powerful. And that's what I say to, it happens a lot, you know, I'll say to my clients, so he was gaslighting you. And they're like, what? And they don't think of it that way. And, you know, a lot of times men, and I'm, again, being gender specific when it isn't necessarily gender specific, but particularly I hear women talk about their husbands getting angry and yelling. And my client doesn't want to deal with that. So they just shut down and they don't say what they're feeling, because they don't want to deal with the anger that comes back.
Right? Because oftentimes it gets worse. It's not in their favor.
Yeah. And so, but that's gaslighting, and that keeps the person in power. Oh, if I get mad, she'll stop harping on whatever she's talking about.
Yeah.
And it works.
What are some of your final thoughts on individuals that is in this position, on what they can do, or just final thoughts that you have?
I think it's really important to, again, talk to people and then really check in with yourself. Like, that's part of the feeling. It's, you feel like things don't feel right. They're kind of surreal. What's the truth? What's not the truth? Just to have some quiet moments for yourself to go, wait a second, you know, where am I? Like, try and get yourself back somehow, if you can. I had a teacher mentor who, when I was telling her about the situation I was in with, she said, imagine, she was an early childhood expert, and she goes, imagine putting on a frog suit. She said, you just, you know, when somebody's talking to you about things that, you know, don't seem true or abusive, you just imagine you put your foot in, the other foot in, you put your arm in, you put your other arm in, you zip it up, and by the time you're done with your imagination putting on your frog suit, the other person's like kind of moved on. And I was like, it's so good, because we don't want to, you know, if it's feeling odd, if it's feeling off, it probably is.
Yeah.
But we doubt ourselves and we think it's us. So if we can kind of come back into our body, and that's the frog suit idea, and the playfulness, you know, being playful and getting into a different feeling in our body, then we can sort out a little bit better what's actually happening. And again, talk to people about it.
Yeah, and the journaling is important. Like, you know, pen to paper, really write about what's going on, reach out for support. And sometimes I'll ask clients, and I'll just ask them just to close their eyes and ask the question, to say, you know, does this belong to me? And they'll get a yes or a no. They might hear it auditorily or see it or sense it or feel it in their body. And if it's a no, which 99% of the time it's a no, because we take on other people's stuff, all you have to do, and this is so juicy, it's instantaneous, all you have to do is say, return to sender with consciousness. And I usually go like this. I'm like, yep, not mine, not mine. Return to sender with consciousness. And you don't even have to take it on, because I think that's the challenge, is that we often take it on. Our brain gets activated. We go find the evidence. We find more evidence. We take that on, and then we just create this incredible storyline that may or may not be serving us.
Right. I suggest my clients write an I statement, because I statements were designed for communicating with another person, but it oftentimes doesn't work because we get gaslighted.
Yeah.
So what if you wrote that anyway? What if you said, when you said that, I felt this way. I have a feeling word list they look at. I felt, oh God, all these feelings I felt when what was happening. And what would have felt better to me is the third part. And then it gives the person permission to really check in with themselves, because we talk ourselves out of our feelings when other people have talked us out so long. So to come back and say, what am I feeling? What am I wanting here? Even if we don't think we're going to get what we want or anything's going to change.
At least express it,
Pay attention to what we really feel and want.
Yeah, I love this. All right. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. Where can people connect with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, my website, pattiashley.com, Patti with an I. Just about everything you need is there. I do individual sessions, group sessions. I have some books and trainings and lots going on.
I love it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. As always, be bold, be brave, be fearless, be the magic of you. Massive love. Mwah, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell to find out about my upcoming shows. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time.